Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to continue our look at informational expository text. We're also going to look at the features that this kind of literature gives us. It always includes photographs, drawings, maps, captions, diagrams sometimes, and that's what helps us understand the information that we're learning about. We're also going to look at trying to come up with key points from what we read to use in a retelling or summary. And that's called drawing a conclusion, understanding what we're reading, what's important about it, and drawing a conclusion. So let's get started. You'll be watching this slideshow called Go West, and then when we're all done, you will go to slide number 7 and do the homework. Today's vocabulary words are again, number 1, culture, characteristics, beliefs, and behaviors of a social group. Number 2, established, to have set up permanently. Number 3, communities, a group of people who live together in the same place. Number 4, immigrants, people who move from one country to live in another. And number 5, traditional, coming from established cultures. And customs, sorry. All right, go west. How did railroads change the face of the Southwest? Before railroads arrived, not many people lived in the Southwest. Those who did were rugged pioneers and members of the Native American tribes. However, the coming of railroads brought big changes in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. In 1869, the first transcontinental railway line was completed. For the first time, railroad tracks stretched across the United States. Over the next few years, more railway lines were built. And on this page, they give us a really nice map that shows us where those railroad lines were built. And they stretch all the way across the United States from the eastern coast all the way now to the western coast. So if I were to summarize the 2 short paragraphs that I just read on 214, I would try to come up with 3 what I thought were important parts. So the first thing is, before railroads, the land and living on the land in the West was quite rugged. And we know that it took people a long time to get from one place to another. But that did change in the late 1800s with the building of the railroads. And it changed primarily for states like, and then I would list those, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. So I came up with 3 specific things that I could remember and that I would be able to list about what I just read. All right, I'm moving on to the next page. A quick trip west. Train travel helped settle the western United States. Before trains, it took 3 months to travel across the country. By train, it took only 8 days to get from New York to San Francisco. So let's take a second and talk about that, boys and girls. Before trains, people would probably ride by horse or by stagecoach, and that would take them 3 months to get from one side of our country to the other. But after the trains were built, it only took 8 days. And we know now if we went by train, it would probably take just a few days, even probably half that amount. So travel is a lot faster now. But 3 months would be 90 days. Once the trains were built, only 8 days. So a significant change there. All right, going back to the article. Moving west was easier, faster, and safer. More and more people were traveling west. Land was cheap, and the railroad companies made the Southwest sound great to Easterners. The railroads wanted people to settle there. It was good for business. An Easterner, boys and girls, is someone who lives on the east coast of the United States. So an Easterner now would be someone that would be living in New York, New Jersey, any states that were bordering the Atlantic Ocean. All right, the next column, new towns. Before long, new communities began to form along the train lines. Some towns began as camps for railway workers. That's how the city of Odessa, Texas was established. Other older towns that had been built far from the railroad were not as lucky. They soon disappeared. But then there were lucky cities like Dallas, Texas. Dallas grew big because it was built at the crossing of several important train lines. So it was kind of an intersection of where all the trains met. So this would be a way that I would organize my thoughts. We're going to look at the first paragraph that talked about quick trips west on page 215, and then the second paragraph, some details from that about new towns. So I would organize these. This I would do in my head, but I would also write it down on paper and kind of take notes this way. So let's see what I came up with as an example. So on one side, a quick trip west, I knew that a trip west took 3 months. But with trains, it only took 8 days. I tried to put that in my own words. I am not copying any of this from the article itself. You cannot do that. That is called plagiarism, and it's not allowed at all, not in school and not in college or anything. So do the best you can to put these in your own words. All right, the second point I have is trains made travel easy and fast. And my third point was land was cheap, so trains helped more people move there to get their own land. And that was one of the things that we know the rail companies wanted to do too. They wanted to bring more people west because that meant more money for them. All right, and on the other side, new towns. Well, new towns are communities, and I wrote it like that because I wanted to include my vocabulary term, communities. New towns or communities grew where railroads were built. Number 2, some old towns located away from the railroads disappeared. But number 3, Dallas, Texas grew bigger because of the railroads. So 3 key points from each of the sections. Sorry. All right, the next page, 216, farms and industry. Farms also sprang up because of railroads. Trains allowed farmers and ranchers to send crops and meat to the east and even other countries. In returns, trains delivered manufactured goods to the farms. This exchange turned some communities into shipping centers. Railroads also helped mining industries to grow by connecting mines with factories. That's why copper mining became very important in Arizona. So that's how they had their industry built. Kind of neat. Terrific trains. Fair Park in Dallas, Texas is the home of the Museum of the American Railroad. It is one of the greatest railroad collections in the United States. The museum lets you walk through an amazing old trains, including the Big Boy. A passenger train from the 1930s has a dining car, sleeping cars, and caboose. The museum plans to move to Frisco, Texas. There is continued to be a place where history comes alive. And it's got a picture of an old train. I know in Michigan, you can go to Durand, Michigan, down by the Flint and Lansing area and see some old trains like that too. All right, our very next page. A flood of people. In the beginning of the 1800s, the population of the West had grown a lot. Some settlers came from the eastern United States. Large numbers of immigrants came from Europe. Some people came from other countries too. Workers from Mexico and China helped build the railway lines. Many built communities in towns and cities in the Southwest. Immigrants brought their knowledge and their culture to the Southwest. They brought their traditional food and music, their ways of farming and building. Thanks to the railroads, America's culture changed and the Southwest became a region of diversity. So even with people coming there, our country itself changed. And we've got lots of great individuals, communities, and traditions and cultures. And that's that word diversity. Diversity means a variety of many different things. Okay, your task today on the assignment is to go to this slide and complete 3 facts about the farm and industry, which was on page 216, and then 3 facts about a flood of people, which was on the final page 217. All right, do your best writing complete sentences, okay? All right, boys and girls, that's all for now.